Hello all. So in this video, we will be looking at the second unit in your Sale of Goods Act 1930. That is your conditions and warranties. So two topics in this. One is about condition. Other one is about warranty. First of all, what do you mean by a condition? And who puts that condition is also very important. So first of all, condition is defined in section 12 subsection 2 of the Sale of Goods Act 1930. And this condition is put by buyer on the seller. It is not put by seller on the buyer, rather it is put by buyer on the seller. So what is a condition? How is it defined under section 12 subsection 2? So section 12 subsection 2 defines a condition as a stipulation which is essential to the main purpose of contract, the breach of which gives a right to repudiate the contract as well as claim damages. So let us take one example. Mr. X went to purchase a car and he asked Mr. Y to suggest him a car which is suitable for touring purposes. And X totally relied upon Y's skill and judgment. Which means what? X had put a condition on Y that he wants a car for touring purposes. And he totally relied upon Y's skill and judgment. Now, Mr. Y suggested him a Bugatti car. And X also had taken away the car and he went home. Later on, he found that the car was not suitable for touring purposes. Now, what is the remedy available to Mr. X? So, Mr. X can repudiate the contract, nothing but return back the car as well as claim damages from Y because Mr. Y did not fulfill the condition put by X. So, seller must fulfill the condition put by the buyer. Otherwise, seller have to face damages. Also, the buyer can return back the goods to the seller. This is what is told in one very famous case law called Baldry versus Marshall. Very, very important case law. The exactly same example what I asked is being asked in the exam. Then, what do you mean by a warranty? Section 12 subsection 3 defines the term warranty. Warranty is a stipulation which is only collateral. It is not essential. It is collateral to the main purpose of contract, the breach of which gives a right to only claim damages. It does not give a right to repudiate the contract. Let us take one example. I went to purchase a washing machine from a showroom and I asked him, I want Samsung washing machine. The seller also gave me Samsung washing machine as per my requirement. Now, I took the washing machine, which means what? The condition put by me has been fulfilled by the seller. So there is no more condition. Now, I took the washing machine to my home and there was some manufacturing defect in that washing machine. Now, this manufacturing defect, I can get it rectified free of cost because my product what I purchase is still under warranty. So please observe the word, it is not guarantee, it is warranty. Warranty means which is given in writing. So that is why whenever we purchase a product, they give us a warranty card or warranty coupon. That is what you have to keep in your mind. So a manufacturing defect in a good can be the best example for warranty. So in warranty, I can only claim damages. I can't return back the goods because the goods what I purchased were as per my requirement. Only thing is there was some manufacturing defect. Such a manufacturing defect, I can get it rectified free of cost. Now, what is the difference between condition and a warranty? Let us see. This is being asked in the exam. Please be careful. You know, condition is a stipulation which is essential to the main purpose of contract, whereas warranty is a stipulation which is only collateral to the main purpose of contract. Similarly, second, Condition, the breach of condition gives a right to repudiate the contract as well as claim damages. Whereas the breach of warranty gives a right only to claim damages. Also, third difference, a breach of condition may be treated as breach of warranty, whereas a breach of warranty can never ever be treated as breach of condition. So in short terms, condition may be treated as warranty, but warranty will not be treated as condition. Now let us understand in what cases a condition may be treated as warranty. That is when a condition will convert itself into warranty. Number one, when the condition put by the buyer is fulfilled by the seller. Second, when a buyer has put a condition but he waives off the condition. Third, when the law expressly provides that the condition must be treated as warranty. In all these three cases, a condition shall be treated as warranty. Now, once a condition is treated as warranty, the buyer will lose the right of repudiation of contract, but he will retain the right of claiming damages. So these are the differences between a condition and a warranty, as well the situations where a condition will be treated as warranty. Now, let us understand what are the types of conditions. There are two types of conditions. One is express condition, which is told either orally or given in writing. There is no confusion as such in case of express condition. Whereas second category is implied condition. Now all the confusion is there in this implied condition only, because a condition which is not told orally, not given in writing, is called as implied condition. So there is always a confusion. What is the condition in that? Yes. So let us learn one by one. First, condition as to title. Title means ownership. Now, when a seller is selling a particular product, it is implied that he is the owner. Am I right? Whereas later on, if it is found that he is not the owner, what right a buyer is having? Buyer can definitely repudiate the contract, nothing but return back the goods as well as claim damages. There is one very, very famous case law behind this one, Roland versus Dievel case law. What happened in this case law is Mr. X purchased a car from Y. Now Y also sold the car to X. Later on, it was found that Y is not the owner. He has stolen the car from Z and he has sold it to X. Now, what happened here? There's a breach of condition as to title. Why? Because when Mr. Y was selling the car, it was implied that he was the owner. But later on, if it is found that he is not the owner, ultimately, Mr. X must return back the goods to Mr. Y, Mr. Z, and he will claim damages from Mr. Y. Then comes your second condition. Condition as to description. When the goods are sold by way of description, it is implied that the bulk goods must correspond with description. If the bulk does not correspond with the description, ultimately what will happen? The buyer will have a right to repudiate the contract as well as claim damages. Now to explain this, there is one more case law, Varley versus Whip. What happened in this case law is Mr. A went to purchase new motor set from B. So Mr. A described he wants a new motor set from B. Now B sold a second-hand motor set to A. A also ignored that and he went home. Later on, he found that the motor set was not a new one, rather it was a second-hand one. Now what is the right available to A? Definitely A will return back that motor set as well as he will claim damages from B. That is what has happened in this case law, Varley versus Whip. Then condition as to sale by sample. Third condition. Now when the goods are sold by way of sample, it is implied that the bulk goods must correspond with sample. If the bulk does not correspond with the sample, then obviously the buyer has a right to return back the goods as well as claim damages. Then fourth condition is condition as to sample as well as description. So when the goods are sold by way of sample as well as description, there is an implied condition that the bulk goods must correspond with sample as well as description. So in case the bulk goods correspond only with sample but not with the description, what the buyer can do? He can repudiate the contract as well as claim damages. In case the goods correspond only with the description but not with sample, then what will happen? The buyer can always again return back the goods as well as claim damages. Then condition as to quality and fitness. Now the term quality is defined under section 2 subsection 12 of the Sale of Goods Act 1930. It says quality means nothing but state or condition of goods, and the law does not impose any implied condition with regard to quality and fitness. So law has raised up its hands and it says, Baba, I will not put any condition with regard to quality and fitness. It is always the buyer who should be aware about a particular product, whether it is of good quality, whether it is matching his requirement or not. Seller is not responsible to disclose any defects in the goods to the buyer. That is what doctrine of caveat emptor is talking about. So law indirectly has included doctrine of caveat emptor, and it told that boss, the buyer should be aware about a particular product. Seller is not responsible. However, law also told if a product can be used only for one particular purpose, the buyer need not be aware. And if the product does not suit the buyer's purpose, then buyer can return back the goods as well as claim damages. To explain this point, there's one very famous case law, Priest versus Last. It is a hot water bottle case law. So let us see what happened in this. Mr. X went to purchase a hot water bottle from a chemist. You know very well, hot water bottle will be used to store obviously hot water. X also took the hot water bottle and he went home. Once he went home, his wife started opening the hot water bottle and she started pouring the hot water. Once she poured the hot water, the bottle got burst and it injured his wife. Now, what is the remedy available to Mr. X? Mr. X can return back the hot water bottle as well as claim damages from the chemist. That is what has happened in Priest versus Last case law. Now, this doctrine of caveat emptor, that is, the buyer should be aware and all, this rule will not be applicable in three circumstances. What are the three circumstances in which this rule will not be applicable? Number one, when the goods are bought under patent name or brand name. So buyer has selected a particular brand, like a branded hot water bottle. If he purchased, then he cannot return back the goods. He cannot even claim any damages. Similarly, when the product can be used for number of purposes, instead of one purpose, it can be used for number of purpose, then the buyer should be aware about a particular product. In case, and he should inform his particular purpose to the seller. If he does not inform his particular purpose to the seller, then he cannot return back the goods and he cannot claim any damages. This was decided in a very famous case law, Jones versus Padgett. What happened in this case law is Mr. X went to purchase a cloth from a cloth merchant to stitch a shirt. But Mr. X did not tell the cloth merchant that I want a cloth to stitch a shirt. He just purchased the cloth, he went home and he started stitching the shirt. When he started stitching, the cloth got shrunk and it was not usable or fit for stitching a shirt. Now Mr. X wants to return back the cloth to the cloth merchant. Can he do so? Answer is no. Why? Because X did not tell his purpose, and the cloth can be used for number of purposes. Hence, he must tell the purpose. When he does not tell the purpose, he cannot return back the goods. He cannot even claim any damages. Then comes your third case where this rule will not be applicable. Third case is in case of any abnormality with the buyer. Such abnormality must be informed to the seller. Otherwise, the buyer cannot return back the goods. He will not have any right to claim damages. To explain this, one very famous case law arises here. That is Griffith versus Peter Conway Limited. What happened in this Griffith versus Peter Conway Limited is a lady went to purchase a leather jacket from a merchant. Actually, her skin was prone to skin disease on wearing any leather apparel. That means she had one abnormality. Now, she did not inform this abnormality to the seller. The seller also sold the leather jacket to the lady. She wore it. Immediately, she got skin rashes. Now, she wants to return back the jacket and claim damages. Can she do so? Answer is no. Why? Because she did not inform about her abnormality. If she had informed about her abnormality to the seller would have sold some other product, or seller would have told, I don't have any other product. So in these three cases, the buyer does not have any remedy available with him. Then comes here fifth one, condition as to merchantability. Now, merchantability means what? Merchantable means nothing but 100% good quality, 100% non-defective quality. That is called as merchantable quality. Now, in case of a seller who is continuously selling certain products, it is always implied that the goods what he sells are of merchantable quality. In case the buyer buys the goods from the seller, but they are not of merchantable quality, then what will happen? He can return back the goods as well as claim damages. This has happened in one very famous case law, R.S. Thakur versus HGE Corporation. Now, what happened here is, in this case law is, Mr. Thakur went to purchase a radio set from HGE Corporation, which is a regular dealer in the radio set. Now, he purchased the radio set, he bought home. Unfortunately, the radio set stopped working, and they incurred number of repairs on that radio set. But in spite of so many repairs, the radio set could not work. Now, what is the remedy available to Mr. Thakur? Only one remedy, or two remedies, obviously. Return back the radio set as well as claim damages. That is what has happened in this case law, R.S. Thakur versus HGE Corporation. Then the next one is, sixth one is condition as to wholesomeness. Wholesomeness, this condition is applicable to eatables or consumables. So what is it implied? In case of eatables or consumables, it is always implied that such eatables or consumables are fit for human consumption. In case they are found unfit for human consumption, the buyer can return back the goods as well as claim damages. For this, there is one very famous case law, Frost versus Aylesbury Dairy Company. Now, what happened in this case law is, Mr. X went to purchase milk from a milk vendor. Unfortunately, the milk contained typhoid germs in it. X consumed a part of the milk and suddenly he got typhoid. Now, what is the remedy available to X? Return back the milk as well as claim damages. This is what has happened in this case law, Frost versus Aylesbury Dairy Company. Then, so 6 implied conditions we have learned. Once again, I'm revising. Now, one is condition as to title. Second one, condition as to description. Condition as to description. Third, condition as to sample. Fourth, condition as to sample as well as description. Fifth, condition as to quality and fitness. Sixth, condition as to merchantability. Seventh, condition as to wholesomeness. Then comes your types of warranties. Again, warranties are of two types: express warranty and implied warranty. Express means which is given in writing, because warranty can't be told orally. That's why I'm telling only writing. Implied warranty, which is not given in writing. Now, there are 4 types of implied warranties. Let us see one by one. First, warranty as to quiet possession. Warranty as to quiet possession. Quiet possession means when a buyer buys certain goods from the seller, it is implied that he alone has a right to use those goods. That means no one else have a right to disturb the possession of those goods by the buyer. In case someone else comes and uses his goods, what the buyer can do? Buyer can only claim damages. He can't return back the goods because this is a warranty. You have to be careful with that point, because breach of warranty gives a right only to claim damages, not a right to repudiate the contract. Second type of implied warranty is warranty as to free from encumbrances. Now, encumbrances means nothing but having some lien or charge over the property. That means, say for example, you obtain some loan against your goods, yes, and certain installments are pending. Before the installments are completed, you can't sell those goods. If you sell those goods, it amounts to breach of warranty as to free from encumbrance. So if the buyer purchases the goods from the seller on which some installments are pending, then the buyer can claim damages from the seller. Why? Because there is a breach of implied warranty as to free from encumbrances. Then third, warranty as to quality and fitness. Now this point we have also seen in conditions. In condition, I told law does not put any condition. Same point I'm telling you in warranty. Law does not impose any warranty as to quality and fitness. However, law says if the buyer and seller wants to impose any condition or warranty with regard to quality and fitness, then such condition or warranty may be annexed by usage of trade. Annexed means attached by usage of trade. That is your third warranty. Fourth one, disclosure of dangerous nature of goods. Now, best example I'll tell you, when seller is selling goods which are of dangerous nature, it is implied that he must inform the buyer that the goods are of dangerous nature. Live or best example will tell, now that Diwali festival is coming. Yes, during this festival, what happens? You purchase crackers. On the crackers box, behind it, they give certain precautions saying that please don't hold the cracker on your hand. Please maintain 5 or 10 feet distance. Why they give all these things? Because the goods are of dangerous nature. It might injure the human being. Similarly, if you purchase Mortin rat killer or hit cockroach or spray or mosquito spray, one precaution will be written in that. Please keep this away from children, and it is not for human consumption. Why they write this? Because the goods are of dangerous nature and it might affect the human being. That is the reason why they write this one. So if this is not mentioned on the dangerous nature, on the dangerous goods, then the seller has to pay damages to the buyer. To explain this, one very famous case law is there, Clark versus Army and Navy Society. What happened in this case, Clark versus Army and Navy Society, is Mr. X went to purchase a tin of disinfectant powder from Mr. Y. You know very well, disinfectant powder are the goods which are of dangerous nature. On that box, nothing was written that the goods are of dangerous nature. Now Mr. X purchased those goods. He went home, he shaked the tin and he opened it in a stylish manner, and the powder went into his eyes and damaged his eyes. Now what is the remedy available to X? Claim damages from Y, because nothing was written on the box that the goods are of dangerous nature. So these are the 4 types of implied warranty. Then the last topic in your second unit is doctrine of caveat emptor. Doctrine of caveat emptor means let the buyer beware. That is, when the goods are being bought by the buyer, it is the buyer's responsibility to be aware whether the goods are of good quality or not, whether there are any damages to the goods or not, which indirectly means seller is not responsible to inform the buyer that the goods are of bad quality, and seller is no way responsible for any bad selection made by the buyer. That is what is told in law. However, law says this doctrine of caveat emptor is not applicable in 3 exceptional cases. Number 1, when the when the buyer relies upon seller's skill and judgment. When the buyer relies on seller's skill and judgment, this doctrine of caveat emptor will not be applicable. Why? Because he is already relying on seller's skill. Second, when the goods are bought under a patent name or a brand name. this rule will not be applicable. Lastly, when the goods are sold by way of sample as well as description, again, this doctrine of caveat emptor will not be applicable. So these three cases, doctrine of caveat emptor will not be applicable. Then what will be applicable, sir? Doctrine of caveat venditor will be applicable in these three cases. Caveat venditor means nothing but let the seller beware. Because in these three cases, if you take the first point, buyer relies upon seller's skill and judgment. Which means what? When buyer is relying on seller's skill and judgment, seller should be aware whether he is giving a proper product to the buyer or not. Otherwise, what happens? Buyer will return back the goods as well as claim damages. That is the logical concept you have to understand. So with this, we come to an end of the unit number 2 in the Sale of Goods Act. The unit number 3 videos will be there in the next video. Thank you for your patience listening.